Hello and welcome to the talkback for Count Drahoon's feature of Fright. I'm Zach Robinson, the Artistic and Community Relations Manager here at the No Theater of Cincinnati, virtually online. And we're going to go through some samples tonight. We're going to go through some questions with our lovely cast and crew and writer. and yeah, none of this would be possible, though, without the sponsor for All Play Undergrounds, Joe Mock, aka Papa Fringe, and the Real Pro Team. And as we do every time on the talk back here, we'll raise a little glass to you, Joe. Thank you so much. Okay, tonight we have a lot of cool people with us. We have the cast and the writer and creator of Count Drahoon, Taylor Gentry, who in this lovely episode plays Count Drahoon / Lenny. We also have Will Lasley, who is Bigfoot. We have CJ Walton as Sophie. And we have Gregory Lanham, I hope I got it right. He'll correct me in a minute if I didn't, as the boogeyman and bartender. Taylor, you're not only a actor in the play, but you're also Count Drahoon himself. You're the creator and writer for this episode. This is what I really love about this is it's kind of like a creep show or Tales from the Crypt type of callback, and I want to know what really inspired you to create Count Drahoon.
Well, first of all, Zach, we're really excited to be here. This is a great opportunity awesome for us, and we love you guys because y'all have treated us so y'all have treated us like one of the family, and we can't thank you enough for that. Now, I've always been kind of an odd duck, to say the least. I grew up watching old school monster movies, particularly the Universal ones, the Hammer horror films. And I also watched the Munsters and the Twilight Zone. And I always wanted to make stories like that because I always thought that the old school monster movies were really more like dark fairy tales. And that's what really fascinated me about those stories because, I mean, most of them took place in castles. They had noblemen, even though the nobleman was a blood-sucking monster. You had fair maidens and magic and monsters and all that stuff. So that always fascinated me as a kid, and it really fed into my creativity, and it inspired me to become the kind of storyteller that I am today. So
that's really, really cool, and I can feel that in this specific episode too, with our adventure into there's a Horla in 303. It just feels very much like a Grimm's fairy tale type of story. So this is not only just a show for Radio No, for people that are unaware, this is also a podcast and TV show, yeah?
Yeah, I've been calling it a vidcast just because it does well on a strictly audio medium, but we do have the video aspect, to add a little something extra to it. But since we've picked up the non-exclusive distribution deal through Troman now, I guess theoretically it is sort of like a TV show because TV shows stream now. So, and we are on a streaming platform. So there you go.
And if not a TV show, it's certainly a streaming program.
Right.
And at this point, what's the difference? Like I said up top, we're going to be going through clips from this specific episode, which is episode 4, yeah? With a little bit of a little bit extras in for the Radio No audience. So you get even more bang for your buck when you download from the No Theater store. So coming up first is going to be our first sample from Count Drahoon's feature of Fright, the therapeutic double feature. This next segment is from the very first story, Monster Therapy. Here is our first audio sample.
Hey friend, you shouldn't worry so much. The Count is actually a great therapist. I've been coming here for a couple months now, and I feel better than I ever did before.
At least you still have your youth, sir. Oh, what I would give to be a young monster once again. I would be so terrifying, like you and Bigfoot. Alas, I am a shadow of my former self, a laughing stock in the monster community.
Now come on, Boogeyman. Remember, we want to focus on today.
And not yesterday.
I'm only here because I was talked into it. I came out of the water and I was attacked by humans. Things got messy and now I'm here.
All right, so in that sample, we heard our first little bit of the monster therapy group. I really love this bit. I think it's a great callback, especially to hear from of the Universal monsters from back in the day and see how they're doing now. So just for Greg and Will, what's your approach to doing voice acting?
Greg, you go first.
Well, when we're get a script from Taylor, you know, he sometimes gives us an idea on what voice to use or something around it, and then I'll get inspired a little bit there. I don't consider myself an impersonator as to Will's you know, level. I'm more like a mimicry. You know, when I was a kid, I would watch a TV show or a movie and I would immediately try to imitate a character or two, you know, and pick up little knack for it, you know. I tend to go for some sort of impersonation as Lisa as a starting point when I'm selecting a voice. And
who was your starting place for the Boogeyman?
Well, it's interesting because Alex, who couldn't be here with us tonight, actually wrote this, and I had heard this before on a separate podcast. And Boris Karloff was actually sort of like the ideal voice to use because he's supposed to be an older guy past his prime. But I went for Peter Lorre as my starting place for the Boogeyman because I thought that was a lot more creepier, and I can do Peter Lorre better than I can do Karloff. So basically, I'm starting with Peter Lorre, and you know, and then making Boogeyman by his own voice. But that's where I approach any role. Basically, Count Drahoon is figuring out what do I have in my wheelhouse, and then I was like, how can I make this impersonation of somebody its own thing and bring that character to life.
That's really cool, and I think that really shines through as the Boogeyman, that Peter Lorre starting place. And Will, I'm super impressed. I found out before we started this that your voice as Bigfoot was just your voice. I thought they had to be using some sort of After Effect on you there.
No.
No, yeah, that was
That was me just doing that voice.
I'm a been doing musical theater for over a decade. I'm a trained bass singer, and so I just kind of but I've also always done voices just kind of for fun. I started doing stand-up about 3 or 4 years ago. And sort of my selling point was that I'm an impressionist. And so a lot of times voices for me are just sort of like with what Gregory was saying. I just sort of do variations of various people. Bigfoot, though, it was more just seeing how booming and distorted I could make my voice, because I kind of was going for that sort of anonymous blurred out face voice, because I've seen interviews with people who have that, I can't remember what it's called, but it's the condition where they're like 7 something feet tall and often have like really large features. There's an actor named Matthew McGrory who is no longer with us, but he was in some of Rob Zombie's movies. But his voice
sounded like this. He had a voice like that.
Just naturally because he was so big, and obviously Andre the Giant. So I just kind of thought, okay, well, it's Bigfoot. I mean, whatever, what else am I supposed to do? And Alex actually co-wrote this one with Taylor. And he said, when they were writing it, he said, like, we basically wrote Bigfoot for you because we knew you could do a voice like that and that it would be really funny. I'm like, well, sure, yeah, I'll do whatever you guys want. And I came in with that. And
it is really funny.
Thank you.
And also just kudos. I was convinced that there had to be some sort of voice distortion on it. And first shout out from the Facebook chat from Luke Patton says that you all are fantastic.
Hey, Luke.
Yeah.
What's up, Luke?
Well,
And that's
guy.
a good transition to our next audio sample. This is our first more frightful feature in the feature of Fright. This is a sample from A Horla Lives in Room 303, our second audio sample.
What was the name of my hamster?
What?
I just want to make sure it's actually you.
Are you kidding me?
Just humor me.
Bilbo. We watched the Hobbit cartoon for the first time, and you said we thought the furry feet were cute. So when Mom got a hamster, you named him Bilbo. You happy?
Rich, come in.
What's going on?
There's somebody who lives in 303.
Okay.
Let's forget it.
I don't get it. People live in apartment buildings.
Yeah, but this guy it's different.
And that's our first feature from Horror Lives in 303, and that stars CJ. You play Sophie. You're our main character, and wow, you do an amazing job. Just immediately, when your voice comes on, it hooks you. You're so grounded and emotional, and that just makes me wonder: are you normally a voice actor, and like, what's your process for approaching a vocal performance?
Well, like Will, I am trained in theater and have my degree in theater. So there's that. I've always actually wanted to do voiceover. My first voiceover was Emotions hair product. It was like when I was what was I, like 15? I might have been 15 when I did that. And then I did one for Panera Bread.
Oh.
And I was interning for a news station, and the guy was like, "Hey, you want to do something?" And I was like, "Yeah," because I grew up loving like Cree Summer and Phil Lamar and those voices, you know. And so as far as like voice acting, I envy Will so much because my brother is good. Like he could do it. Like he got it. But the emotional part is because when he gave me that script, I don't know if Taylor knew, but I knew what a Horla was before I even, like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, ooh. So that's why I had an emotional connection to it, because I wanted to do, you know what I'm saying? It was something I wanted to talk
totally.
about. Yeah, and I'm a storyteller. And I wanted to tell the story of the Horla that lived in 303. So
and so obviously being from a theatrical background, like so many of us are, the face does a lot of the work when you're on stage, but it feels like you don't even miss a beat transitioning to just a vocal performance only. So how do you approach that aspect of it and keeping everything different vocally?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know. I've always been afraid of my voice because I think my voice is way deeper than a female's voice should be. I do. I feel like I have a man's voice. I feel like I got big balls down here. So hairy ones. I think that what I do, I want to make sure that the character matches the voice, and then it matches what the emotion is behind the voice. Because it's not what I'm saying, it's what I'm, you know, it's like if I say, "How you doing?" "I'm great." "No, you're not. You're not great. What's behind that great?" You know what I'm saying? What's behind that? And that's what I was looking for. And that's what I do whenever I try to get a script, even if it's the smell of butter and, you know, something like that, because I like butter. So I'm gonna talk about butter. Yes. You know, I don't know. If I like it, I'm gonna talk about it. And if I don't, it's gonna be really hard. Like, chicken.
Hmm. Well, I can really feel that through your performance. Each line has so much intention behind it. It's just multi-layered. And it's really excellent. And so that's just another reason to check out this piece, because not only do you get one story, you're going to get 3 stories, and one that is 2-parted. Speaking of the second part, we're going to hear our 3rd audio sample from the Monster Therapy group. The second part of Monster Therapy, sample number 3, is coming up right now.
Well, we didn't get too far, actually.
No?
No, dear Count, you see, Gilman and I were approximately 15 minutes into our spree when we sort of had an epiphany.
Interesting.
Yeah. We talked for a bit on our way into town, and
what, Gilman?
Well, we stumbled upon a group of humans. They didn't run from us, but they recognized us. Not only that, but they seemed to be in awe of us.
Okay, so Greg, you obviously play multiple characters throughout this one, and we talked about it a little bit up top, but what is the biggest challenge for you personally when it comes to making so many vocally distinct characters?
Well, another reason to try and do an impersonation, because you're grounded in that performance, you know. In Monster Therapy, I do the boogeyman, pretty much straight through. But there was one we did almost a year ago, well, over a year ago actually, where I had to play 3 different characters in one skit, and that was a bit of a challenge, because you're trying to. Thank goodness they were widely different type voices. But another reason to ground yourself into an impersonation, and we do a couple of rehearsals and that sort of thing to try to sort it out. But sometimes they can fade into the other, and if you're not paying attention, you know. But I love Peter Lorre so much that it's easy to slip into that sort of voice and then be a regular person when you have to, or an irregular person. And one thing CJ mentioned is all of us who are in the Merry Mob, we're all sort of a horror and fantasy sci-fi geeks, you know. We're not, Shakespeare, scholars solely who are doing this and don't understand the material. We really love doing these sort of stories, and we know about all the characters and the history behind the Hammer films and all of that. So it's kind of easy to do some of these voices, which are like homages to those classic actors who are in these films. So that
I'm a big fan of that too.
Characters.
I'm a big fan of that too, and I can really feel that you are all are committed to that almost William Castle-esque kind of performance.
Yes.
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 Funny you mentioned William Castle. We also recently did our own little version of House on Haunted Hill.
Oh, yes. Taylor told me about that. Is that available on the Count Drahoon Facebook page and Instagram?
It is. You can. So we have a separate YouTube channel, but you can listen to the audio through featurefright.com. And then if you want, I can later on I can post the link to the YouTube video so y'all can watch it.
Great, fantastic.
And if you like impersonations, you want to check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we did a whole William Castle style gimmick where we had each member of the Merry Mob do their own celebrity impersonation to the character that they were assigned.
Yeah.
That's super fun.
Yeah, so you had all kinds of different voices.
Yeah.
It's that's very in the spirit of the gimmick-driven William Castle.
Exactly.
Not as good as a flying skeleton in a theater, but I think it's very good.
Or buzzing seats.
Well, when we get a budget, we plan on doing something like that. But
that'd be
we're building up to
it.
Right, yeah.
So speaking of, you talked about the whatever, Greg, you just called it. It's the monster for what you call yourselves as voice actors in the show. The monster,
Merry Mob of Mayhem.
the Merry Mob of Mayhem. So, Taylor, with the Merry Mob of Mayhem, and you doing multiple of these now, what's the advantage to having this regular voice cast?
Well, that's a really good question. So, to me, it all comes down to chemistry. We all know each other. We work very well professionally. We also really like each other. That's the big. I think that's the biggest component of all of this. We genuinely love. There's real love. We're like a family, and I think that drives everybody to be their best, to work their best, and it's fun for me because I'm so blessed to be able to work with such a wonderful cast month after month, or however much we record, because sometimes it's every month, sometimes it's every other month. It just depends on the schedule. But they rise to every challenge that I can think to give them. Because with CJ, I think the first episode that she did with us was back in the summer of last year. We filmed that.
Holy was it?
Yep. And it was a straight comedy. And so like it was, and not, I knew she could do it, but just see her take this very serious story with the Horla bit and just to do as fantastic as she did, it was an honor for me to be able to watch all of that. And for Greg,
Blahoon, right?
Do what?
That was Blahoon, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah, we had our first episode was basically an homage to 70s horror and sci-fi, and the first story was Scream Blahoon Scream.
Yeah. Jesus, I've been with y'all
that long.
I swear to God, it does not feel like that. It does not feel like that.
Yeah, no, time flies.
We've been out of town with each other and everything.
Yeah. We drove all the way down to South Pittsburgh, which is about like an hour from the Tennessee Georgia line or something, give or take.
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, so we've definitely we've built our own little unit, and so we have. With every new story comes a new challenge, but for me, it's wonderful to pull from everybody to see what they can do, and a lot of times I'd like to pick roles, like I'll get an inkling or an intuition. It's like, you know what, I think Greg will be perfect for this. Will would be really good for that, and it always works out. So
that's really great to hear, as a big fan of horror myself. It almost seems every time that the behind the scenes on horror movies is always just a big, fun, happy family. So it's good to hear that tradition is continuing to go on. Speaking of all this stuff about regular voice cast, Taylor, thanks to us doing not only episode 4, we get a little sneak peek into other episodes. And in our final story, in our final sample from Kill the Flame, you take off your Count Drahoon cape and transition into the character of Lenny. So before we go into questions, let's just hear a little sample from Kill the Flame and our sample number 4.
There was something hypnotic about her. I could definitely see that when she started singing. There was some conversation going on when I first got there, but when she got up there, it was like the entire world stopped just to listen to her sing. That voice was something else. I didn't know what was going on in my head. I didn't know if I was inspired, falling in love, or just thoroughly impressed. However I felt, I knew I had to try to talk to her again.
So, well done. Great story. I love that one. I know when we initially talked on the phone and you sent that one over, it was like, great. Yeah, we got to have a vampire story in here. I love a vampire story.
Say, like when we talked on the phone, you referred to it as the vampire daddy story.
Yeah, the vampire daddy story, which I think is a really good subtitle to the name Kill the Flame.
Yes.
So
Vampire Daddy story.
Who's your daddy?
That's what
you know, it's got a
that's
little
what
bit of
it's
True
called?
Blood.
Is that not what it's called, Taylor? The Vampire Daddies? That's not what it's called?
Well, not officially.
I thought that's what it was called, Will. My
No.
bad.
You know what? It seems like everybody wants it to be called that. So maybe in the future.
It's one of those. It's like that Tom Cruise movie, the one where he kept dying and the day kept repeating.
Yeah,
I
Edge of
thought you were
Tomorrow.
going to say Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like that title, like everybody thought that movie was called something else, but it like
Everybody thought it was called Live, Die, Repeat.
right.
Mhm.
It was called Edge of Tomorrow.
Yes.
That's what it was.
So my big question about just when it comes to going over all these different horror things, especially with vampires and how much vampires has been done already, how do you keep it fresh and new?
Well, the thing is, Zach, I didn't intend to write a vampire story. I guess that's the secret because so what had happened was at the time that I wrote that, I was in this very, I wasn't quite dating the girl, but I was in a very strange romantic entanglement with someone. And it so much so that like it was really occupying my thoughts, and it was just sort of it made its way to my, my daily routine, as it were. Like I couldn't think about anything else. So I use writing as a therapeutic tool a lot of times. And basically, most of the dialogue you hear in that story and they're actual conversations that took place. But if I'm going to put this into a supernatural show, I can't just have sensational dialogue. There's got to be something else to it. So initially, I was going to make it into a witch story, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like that doesn't do it for me creatively. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, well, the whole point of this story is about a man being drawn to this woman that's more than likely going to do some sort of damage to him, but he can't help it because he's so attracted to her. And to me, like the only things from a supernatural perspective that fit that bill was a vampire. And I tried to be really careful because like I don't want to oversaturate the show with too many vampire stories because there is a vampire. He's the central.
They're kind of all vampire stories by proxy.
Yeah, they're all vampires. That could be a really cool punk rock band, Vampire Stories by Proxy.
It's not always just about you and your people.
Right, it's not always about me. So,
what do you mean, you people?
What do you mean, you people? So, so I took, but I thought that a vampire story in that regard made sense because vampires are often linked with sex appeal and sexuality. So it was a good fit. So that's kind of how that stuck. And also, for some reason, while I was writing the story, I was listening to a lot of Leonard Cohen. So there's a few allusions to his discography. I mean, obviously the title of the story is a Leonard Cohen song, Kill the Flame. And the character's name is Lenny. So there you go.
I love it. That's great. We have a handful of statements and questions from the audience before we take this one home. We have from Amanda Gentry, we love you. And Catherine Buford sends a lot of heart emojis.
Oh, we love y'all.
And Xavier Patrid says, howdy, y'all.
Xavier.
And we have a very important question from Catherine Burford. Quick question, is Will single?
I said let's ask.
Oh my God, yes, there's just one of him, thank God.
Oh, that's my girlfriend asking that question. She's
I
sitting
assume
right next
so by the others egging her on in the chat.
The question is coming from inside the room.
That's too
Don't
funny.
come for my baby brother. Don't come for my baby brother.
It was really funny.
Hey, Cat.
Oh, well, this was super fun, y'all. Thanks for coming on tonight. Taylor, Alex. Oh, Alex is not here anymore, reading from the script.
We
Will,
thank you.
CJ, and Gregory for joining us tonight. If you like what you heard in these samples tonight, you can buy your own copy from the No Theater store. That is notheater.com/merchandise. After that, you can listen to even more gleefully ghoulish episodes by Count Drahoon's Feature of Fright by following them on their social medias. On Instagram and Twitter, it's at Count Drahoon, and you can like their Facebook page, Count Drahoon's Feature of Fright. I would also like to thank the No Theater production staff behind the scenes tonight, our design and production associate, Kayla Williams, and resident stage manager, Megan Winter. I've been Zach Robinson. Thanks for tuning into this talkback for Count Drahoon's Feature of Fright. Until next time, well, there is a way that all the Count Drahoon episodes are ended. So, Taylor, would you like to take us away?
I'd love to. Always remember that as far as things go, when things go bump in the night,
There
are such things.
things.